Cyclone Nargis, the disaster that could have been mitigated. What if I told you that about 138,000 people died in a single natural disaster? Not because the storm was unprecedented, but because humans systematically destroyed the very thing that could have saved them. This is the story of Cyclone Nargis, the deadliest tropical cyclone of the 21st century and the fifth deadliest on record, and why what happened in Myanmar in 2008 should terrify every coastal community on Earth. The catastrophe that shook the world. May 2nd, 2008. The sun rises over Myanmar's Ayeyarwady Delta, where millions of people are beginning what they don't yet know will be their final ordinary day. By nightfall, Cyclone Nargis would unleash devastation so severe that it ranks among the 5 deadliest cyclones ever documented. Picture this. You're standing in your home when suddenly a wall of water over 5 meters, about 16 to 17 feet high, topped by waves nearly 2 meters tall, comes roaring towards you at the speed of a freight train. Survivors describe the sound as like 1,000 trains screaming at once, freezing people in terror. But here's what makes this disaster especially haunting. The water didn't just hit the coast and stop. The storm surge powered as far as 50 kilometers inland, turning rice fields into an inland sea. In several island villages, up to 80% of residents perished. Entire communities nearly erased overnight. Most were children and women who couldn't outrun the advancing destruction. Pause for a moment and think about this. How would you even begin to process losing nearly 8 out of every 10 people in your community overnight? The silent killer nobody saw coming. Here's what the media won't always tell you about why Nargis was so catastrophic. It wasn't just a story about a powerful storm. It was about humans systematically dismantling their natural protections over decades. From 1978 to 2011, the Ayeyarwady Delta lost roughly 64% of its mangrove cover, a slow-motion ecological suicide driven by rice paddy expansion, shrimp farms, and illegal logging. Think of mangroves as nature's shock absorbers. A 100-meter wide belt of healthy mangroves can reduce incoming wave height by 50 to 90%, buying coastal residents the precious minutes they need to reach higher ground. But by 2008, these natural fortresses have largely vanished, replaced by farms and ponds offering about as much protection as tissue paper. Researchers later confirmed something crucial. Villages retaining mangrove fringes recorded markedly lower casualty rates and faster recovery compared to completely deforested areas. The trees didn't just slow the water, they literally saved lives. The aftermath that revealed everything. When the sun finally rose on May 4, 2008, the true scope of the disaster became painfully clear. Beyond the staggering death toll, about 2.4 million people found themselves with nothing. No homes, clean water, food, or infrastructure, just the brutal reality of starting again from zero. But here's the surprising truth that emerged from the tragedy. Communities that preserved even small patches of mangrove forests fared dramatically better than those that cleared everything away. Village elders who insisted on maintaining traditional buffer zones suddenly found themselves hailed as heroes. Their old-fashioned wisdom had saved countless lives. Drop a comment below if you've ever witnessed traditional knowledge about natural barriers protecting communities in your area. The international response was swift, but revealed something important about disaster recovery. Most aid focused on rebuilding what was lost: houses, schools, roads. But a smaller group of scientists and conservationists asked, what if we rebuilt better? What if we restored the natural systems that had protected these communities for generations? A solution hiding in plain sight. This is where the story takes an inspiring turn. After Nargis, something remarkable happened. Communities that had lost everything realized their survival depended not just on concrete and steel, but on the green walls of mangrove forests their grandparents once took for granted. Restoration efforts began to focus on nature-based solutions, working with natural systems rather than against them. Mangroves don't just absorb storm surges. They trap sediments, build coastal land, support fisheries, and store massive amounts of carbon. The restoration process itself is almost miraculous. Picture thousands of people wading through muddy tidal flats, carefully planting mangrove seedlings that initially look like tiny sticks. Within months, these humble plantings transform into dense, green barriers capable of withstanding nature's violent tantrums. But here's what scientists learned the hard way. You can't just plant mangroves anywhere and expect them to survive. Most restoration projects fail due to unsuitable planting locations. Success demands understanding tidal patterns, soil conditions, and local ecosystems, knowledge often held by elderly community members who remember what the coast once looked like. Which scenario terrifies you more? Facing a hurricane without natural barriers, or watching your community ignore the lessons from disasters like Nargis? The future we're building. Here's the paradigm shift Cyclone Nargis revealed. We've been thinking about disaster protection backwards. Instead of building higher seawalls and stronger bunkers, the most effective defense is often working with the natural systems that have safeguarded coastlines for millions of years. This means the next disaster might not be a question of if nature strikes, but whether we've preserved the ecosystems that minimize damage. Every wetland filled, forest cleared, or reef damaged weakens our collective shield against nature's extremes. The tragedy of Nargis isn't just the lives lost, it's that many of those deaths were preventable if natural defenses had been intact or restored. The question now is, what will we do with this knowledge? Next time you see mangroves, wetlands, or coastal ecosystems, remember Cyclone Nargis. Sometimes the most powerful life-saving technology isn't steel or concrete. It's roots, leaves, and the ancient wisdom of working with nature, not against it.